Everybody would please kindly stand or move any here, recognize the flag for our pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those of you who haven't been to the board's meeting very often, my name is Kurt Johnson. I am the vice chair. Our chairman is not here this evening, so bear with us. He does a very good job. I'll do my best to get through it as Mike would otherwise do. We have looking for a motion to approve the agenda. We've been taking attendance here where we'll get everybody noted. Valerie Wallane will be here momentarily. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Brandon. You're going to give it, and second to Kim. Does that work? Okay.
Sure.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
need to take a vote.
Okay, let's take a vote while we're at it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed. Motion approved. Okay. District recognitions. We have Pequot Lakes Middle School Reading Achievement, Pequot Lakes High School Brainerd Dispatch Award. Superintendent Lindholm?
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that, Kurt. I think it's appropriate for us to call out in an official board meeting. We've done this a little bit informally, but an official board meeting that the high school and the middle school both were honored with an award right before school started. That's pretty cool to talk about and brag about. Our middle school, when they took the MCA tests last year, the overall reading achievement of the middle school puts it in the top 5% of schools in the state of Minnesota in terms of percentage of kids proficient. So kudos to the teachers at our middle school. I'd like to say kudos also to our teachers at Eagleview. We know it's cumulative. It comes through, it starts in preschool and comes all the way through. Our staff has just done a dynamite job. So Mike, to your team, congrats.
And the support from Eagleview that he got.
Yeah, absolutely. That from all of our staff. And our high school got a separate award. Every summer, the Brainerd Dispatch does this poll of the best of in the Brainerd Lakes area. And our high school was voted the #1 school in the Brainerd Lakes area by the Brainerd area community. And that, too, is a very cool recognition. Those things don't happen by chance. They happen with good, hard, diligent work. And I've only been here 5 years, and I can say a lot has been done in the last 5 to make the high school the great school that it is. So kudos to Aaron and his team. Should I roll right into the next one?
Well, if I might just give you a warm you up here a little bit. We have a new staff roster here for Eagleview Middle School and High School and district-wide. And you'd like to speak to those. Some of these folks have moved campuses. Some of the folks are new. So I'll take it over from there.
So for our staff who are new, what we have started here a few years ago is board members often don't get a chance to see you and put a face with a name. They just get a name in a packet. So this is the chance to go around and just tell us who you are, your name, tell us your role in the district, maybe where you're from, and you have permission when you're done to leave. You don't have to stay for the whole board meeting. That is perfectly fine, but you're welcome, of course, to stay. So I think y'all aren't new, so we'll just start over here in the front row, and then work our way to the second row, and then the third row here. So go ahead and tell us your name, where you're from.
Do you want me to stand up?
Sure.
I'm Abigail Kilwalk. I'm 3rd grade long-term self-release Logan at Eagleview. I'm from the Brainerd Lakes area. I just recently moved back from Arizona, where I taught 2nd grade last year in Casa Grande. And I moved back in with mom and dad, who came tonight. Yeah, and I got a dog, Tandy. Tandy. Yep. Proud dog mom.
Awesome. Welcome.
Ryan France, I'm the new school resource officer. Originally from the Brainerd area, I've lived around the area most of my life, so I'm excited for a new challenge.
How many kids do you have?
3.
You have 3, and they're all in our schools?
They are. Yep.
Yep. Hockey coach. Wonderful guy. So welcome.
Thank you.
you all are new, right? So, you're up.
I'm Todd Knudsen, I'm a high school art teacher. I'm originally from Appleton, Minnesota, and came to Pequot by way of Jordan, and I've taught there for 10 years.
Welcome.
Myla Carlson, I am early childhood para, and I come from this one.
What's that?
Is that the camera?
Yeah, are you gonna get on there and want
Just to prove I'm here. My name's Tom Street. I'm a career advisor. I'm actually not employed by the school district, correct?
Correct, yeah.
I'm not sure how all that works. But my role is, apparently the state has Minnesota statute 120B.125 that mandates that schools provide career assessments starting with 9th grade and to start doing personal learning plans. So that's my role here. And my background, I have an elementary ed degree, 13 years of teaching in elementary school. Then I went to working with adults, helping them to do job search career assessments. And then I came here. And actually, not to embarrass, you don't have to have this in minutes, but Kim, I think I met you probably 20, 30 years ago. And I think my wife actually babysat you. That's
Where was I?
yeah, not to embarrass you, you don't need to take out any minutes. We don't need to vote on it or anything.
So if I might, where was your previous experience at? Where were you at in school?
In school, I've graduated from Ohio State University, taught in New Mexico, where I met my wife, Betty Loveland, who actually attended this. There you go.
You're the husband of Betty Loveland.
Ooh,
That's
you
all
don't
you
say
need.
that
That's
too
all
much.
you need to say.
No,
No, that's extraordinary. The Loveland family. That's
yeah, so that is-
iconic, legendary.
Okay. And I say this, I don't mean it in a bad way or whatever, but I've been around a lot in a lot of different schools, and I say this very sincerely, I am super impressed with your administration here, super impressed in your leadership. I actually got into the classrooms today, and yeah, your kids are just fantastic, and I'm really, really looking forward to great things here.
Thank you.
Thank
Tell
you.
Betty we said hi.
And your mom and dad, right? So to all of our new staff that are here tonight, thank you for this. I think what we'll do is we'll just do a quick recess and then we'll shake hands and just say welcome officially to our district, and then we'll continue on. Is that okay with you, Mr. Chair?
That's absolutely certain.
We have to take a little break.
Yep.
Thank you.
Got it.
It's a pleasure.
I'm glad you said something. Yes.
All right.
Good. Well, you never know.
So, very small town. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Nice job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And now it's a normal crowd.
All right, moving along, reports and information items. I don't believe I've seen anybody representing student council, or do we have a student council representative here, anybody? Not with that. They know the meetings are at 6. We got that cleared up a couple years ago. All right, so your report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have 2 or 3 quick ones. First of all, I want to publicly thank our media center staff and Ben Johnston, our principals, and our English teachers at the middle school and high school for helping with the distribution of over 700 Chromebooks last week. We have had some wireless connectivity issues that are totally unrelated to the Chromebooks, but the Chromebook process of actually handing them out using the media center software for inventory worked flawlessly, and it was extremely fast and efficient. So kudos to those people for putting in some extra time and helping us out with that process. And then I think the thing I want to focus on the most here is to give our board a little background information on some of the emergency planning work our administrative team's been doing over the last 6 months. Because it's moving from our conference room between 5 or 6 of us to now all staff and students, and give you a little bit more background on that. Our team a year ago, a couple years ago actually, started learning about what's called the Incident Command System, or ICS. And we did the training, and we've done some lots of tabletop conversations around this. But in an Incident Command System, that's language put together by FEMA, and it's language to be used among emergency response entities, so they have common language when they respond to a crisis. So when you get fire showing up with police, National Guard, all of these different players, they have different language. And so ICS was rolled out years ago to make sure everyone was using the same terminology when responding. So we started training on that. Our administrators have been baby stepping into it slowly over time and are now poised to really hit the gas pedal and roll it out to all staff and start for things like fire drills and severe weather drills and things like that, start using the language. So how is it different? If ICS is just the language, how we respond to an emergency is shifting. We're getting better at it. It's shifting from what I call prescription type responses to thinking and using common sense type responses. In other words, think of it this way. When the fire alarm goes off, everyone just does what? Runs out the building out in the nearest exit. And what we've learned from some of the school shootings and things in the history of our country is that then that sheep-like response, just run out the door, and you might very well be running into some other threat that's out there that you didn't see on your way out. So instead of learning to just respond, actually think, where's the real threat? Another example of that, and it's the horrific one, is when we've been doing lockdown drills for years, where we just tuck under a table, lock doors, shelter in place. And what we know is maybe the best thing to do is run like heck if there's someone in the building with a gun and get out, right? Get away from the actual threat. So the drilling and the practicing we've been doing as an administrative team is, instead of just responding in a prescribed way, respond in a thinking way where you do a fast threat assessment and then implement incident command communication protocols, which means the incident commander gets on the radio and says, I am the incident commander, here's where incident command is, get on the PA, say evacuate zones 1, 2, and 3 of the building, or lock down the building and give directions rather than just rehearsing one way to respond to a crisis. It's not new to emergency management, it's newer to school systems, because schools aren't trained like cops. So as we get better at it, these principals will drill and practice being the incident commander and delegating that for when they're out of the building and having people think on their feet in crises that happen. And I just want to thank our principals because it's kind of a shift. It's a really big shift. And what you'll also hear from your kids is if there's a fire drill, we don't dump the building and get back into class and start teaching in 4 minutes like we've been doing. We actually start throwing some, and Melissa's been doing some really nice work at Eagle View of blocking an exit or creating another scenario in a scenario so people have to respond. What happens if a kiddo has a seizure in the middle of a fire drill? Now we get a medical and a fire drill or a fire. So training the team at each school to really think on their feet and start planning for the unexpected. That's what we're doing. And I know our high school and middle school are kicking off some of that work Wednesday of this week with a drill. Both Mike and Aaron are having faculty meetings to get folks up to speed on it. Our building and grounds team has been part of this conversation and helping us become more efficient. So kudos to all of those folks. Any questions from board members before I move on? That was more of a lengthy item.
I have kind of just a random question.
Yeah.
When you think about an emergency in this building, I'm guessing there's a hierarchy of who's in charge. It's obviously 4 people who would be down in one zone.
Yep.
So that's all.
That's exactly why we're practicing this. You're spot on. Like, who's actually in charge? Is it Mike? Is it Aaron? Is it Chris? and making us work through all that before the actual crisis happens. So one of the hardest challenges is, well, what do you do when both guys are out of the building and I'm gone, right? Now who's the incident commander? And we have to go 3 people deep in every position as part of the protocol. So it's a great point. 90% of the time, if both our high school principal and our middle school principal are in the building, it will be one of those 2 who becomes incident commander in this building. Melissa, if she's in her building, but then they have to, like I said, have a plan B and a plan C. That's hard to do. When I first started doing this, when I was a principal, the hardest thing was schools are very flat organizations, meaning as a principal you can have up to 150 direct reports, and you're the boss of all of them. But if you get into police forces and structures for emergency management, they will tell you, in a real emergency, you can only have 5 to 7, maximum of 7. 5 is optimal direct reports. Because there's too much flying at you too fast. You can't communicate with 100. So the hardest thing we have to do is build a hierarchy in an organization where there isn't really a hierarchy. Does that make sense? So that's why it's taken us a while to kind of talk our way through it and figure out how do you do that and what teachers can you grab and what staff can you grab that are really experts in different scenarios.
So my only other question on that is, are we still doing lockdown drills or are we moving to this? Oh, we are.
Well, consider it just another way of doing a lockdown drill. So we might lock down and then role play. The threat is in the commons. And so now teachers on that end of the building and on that end of the building will hear that and go, oh, get out. I don't have to just sit and act like a hibernating sheep if my area isn't as secure as I can make it, as I want it to be. So it's how can we think through that? Part of the Alice training we went to was that 3 years ago? I think 2 years ago. 2 years ago was we had to sit and listen to the auditory recordings of the 911 calls at Columbine. And the hardest thing is we have staff trained to make kids sit under a desk, when the smart thing to do was run. And so they forced the kids to stay put, which meant they became sitting ducks. So it's the way we train. We have to train to think, so we respond smarter. The teacher wasn't at fault. She was doing what she had been trained to do. That was a hard recording to listen to. It was about 15 minutes. Great questions. Great questions.
You're working with, is it John Bowman, working down at the sheriff's office?
Yeah, we work with Mr. Bowman once in a while on, when we get into multi-agency type drills, we have to work with John.
Right.
In the immediate, we're working with our SRO, and
Right.
our local police chief, and our fire
Fire
chief.
chief, good, that's what I wanted to.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just the last thing I would throw out there is homecoming is next week. I'm sure everyone knows homecoming is next week already, believe it or not. And the game is at 6, not 7, so make sure we're writing that down on the calendar. So Aaron, we have to remember to push that message out loud, loud, loud.
Yeah, we'll give the radio
Is the dance
stations.
here at school? It is.
Dance,
After the game.
middle school dance before the game on Friday.
Correct.
Senior high.
That is the end of my report. Mr. Chair. Questions, of course.
Sure. Any other questions? All right, next up is the high school improvement plan by Principal Nelson.
So last year, Aaron gave his first report and was about a month into the job. So hopefully you feel like you have a little more to go on here. This is an annual process for our staff that are in the room. Each principal comes and gives a report to the board, basically reporting on their school improvement plan work that they've been doing and leading in partnership with the building leadership team. So Aaron got the short straw, he got to go first. Gets to go first.
I get to go first, mostly because we get to celebrate, so. I was gonna just make it one slide long.
That's cool, that's it. Thank you.
Once you're number one, is there anything else to say? It's a fun award we've been playing with a little bit. It's kind of fun to be recognized, but I think there's a lot of things that we need to do to kind of maintain that position. My goal here, I've been told, is under 20 minutes, so otherwise it's going to cost me something, so I'll see what I can do. Just real brief overview, our site improvement plans for last year were these goals. Under safe and collaborative culture, we want to improve communication, establish effective professional communities, learning communities. For effective instruction in every classroom, is establish learning goals and scales and conduct effective period observations. And for level 3, a guaranteed and viable curriculum is document and record learning goals and scales in digital curriculum library. I will try to keep this really brief. I think you guys have board notes that will have a lot of the details. I'm afraid if I get bogged down in minutia, this will take forever. Brandon, you asked a question last year, how are you going to know if you're successful, or how are you going to measure success? We did a survey that kind of helped to help to establish whether or not we were effective in a lot of these areas. So you'll hear some references to the survey, and I've included some of that data in here, trying to give you a summary, you might say. So on a 5-point scale, we had assessments from previous year, some plans put in place to improve communication. We come back and ask staff, what's your feedback now? And it was very clear as you look at the data, there were some areas that were very similar or some that were down. An area that was up considerably was in the area of communication. So we really targeted how we're communicating with staff, and they responded by saying, yeah, we see it. Yeah, we're seeing some differences here. We're seeing some improvements. We feel like we are more in the loop of what's happening. A large thing we did was we shared a lot of notes. We tried to communicate frequently. I established a weekly email. I was going on, the board members been included in that, where I'm trying to put, here's the latest information, here's maybe some best practice research out there, here's some trends that's happening in education, including parents and others. Professional learning communities, again, there's some data from our survey that is asking about it. We met every other week, so we basically established a PLC process that was consistent, and there was some recognition from the staff that some of those things were improved. There's also some areas where they feel like, no, we need to see, we're not seeing what the value of this process is if we're not working towards a specific goal. I'll talk a bit more about that this year, so we're going to grow in our professional learning communities. But we established them last year, we met consistently, and we had a great opportunity for collaboration. As far as effective instruction in every classroom, for establishing learning goals and scales, 95% of the courses have been completed. Of course, our goal was 100%. Actually, I think my goal stayed 100% by the end of semester 1. That was not achieved. We didn't get 100% by the end of semester 2, and we didn't get 100% by the end of summer, but we have made great progress. A couple of things is there's a couple of individuals I'm working with on getting those in, but we've also got some new classes established. We have some teachers that have a number of preps, and they're saying, okay, I was at 0, I've now got 50% of them done. Our goal is to have those completed. So we also, like I said, we have some new courses or courses that have been revised, and we put out this update learning goals and scales. Conducting peer observations. This was something that was a teacher initiative in 2017, spring 2017, that your high school staff worked with Mr. Rankin. Was considered a success. We wanted to continue that. We wanted to get people familiar and comfortable out of their own classrooms, into colleagues, and observe what's going on, and then, more importantly, have a professional dialogue and discussion about what is effective instruction. And we did 2 of those in 2 different formats, and that helped. It was a good process that helped to provide us with kind of guidance for where we want to go now with it, to make them more effective process. I'll also bring that up here a little bit. As far as level 3 guaranteed and viable curriculum, I would say we are not completely successful at meeting that goal. I was hoping to have all of our courses in, or more like 80% of our courses have been uploaded to our digital curriculum library. It's really interesting. I had new staff come in, and they say, well, what's the curriculum? And we'd say, go to DCL, and I had Mr. Margaret, who is our new teacher, never taught psychology before, go, oh, wow, there's a ton of stuff out there. This is really helpful, which is exactly what we were trying to do. So, greatly appreciated the work that had been done on this year, and we were very thorough. So, this is something that we continue to work on. Compliance, like I said, is over 80%. We're growing and working to improve that. Just real briefly, a couple other things that we did last year that maybe were focus areas at the high school. Restructured our credit recovery and added licensed staff for focus. Our credit recovery, I just wanted to clean it up so it was more consistent, that there's some guidelines established for families and kids, some expectations for credit recovery, when it was going to happen, how long those terms were. And because we did that, then we were able to actually receive funding, where our .2 FT, or 0.2 funding came in for students, who came after school, which allowed us then to hire a teacher to fill that role with focus and with credit recovery. We introduced advanced placement courses to the curriculum. Mr. Greg Martin is actually taking an advanced placement class this year. It's going to take some training. We're going to look at offering in English for next year with her background in training. This is getting back to a question that Valerie had mentioned last year when I met with you in November, and she said, how do we preserve these offerings for our students that are college credit? And I mean, in the reality of there's a date coming in 2022 where if you're not getting 18 credits or you don't have a master's in that area, you cannot teach it college credit. And so we know that we're going to have a fall off of college classes. How do we get ahead of that to make sure we still have the offerings for kids? And so AP is our direction. We developed a ninth grade career academy, and Mr. Tom Street is here today. He's actually meeting with our ninth graders on the first day of the academy, and they kind of got an introduction as to what does ninth grade mean, what's this all about. This academy is going to prepare them not only for high school and planning for their college, or their classes in high school, course planning and success in school, but then start looking at things beyond. So they're going to learn about themselves, know yourself, and then what is it you want to become. So how do you lead yourself? That's what I'm thinking. And then, just a little note, we maintained our CIS offerings on campus this year. I've gotten very creative in how we're doing that, and we're still legal, but maybe not in the modes that we did before. And it's kind of different. We're experimenting a little bit this year with an opportunity with CLC, which is not how we usually offer classes, but we hire back. We contracted through CLC to get Tracy Cheetah back on campus before the school day, working with kids in psychology. Pretty excited about that opportunity. Different. We're the only school in the area that's doing this with CLC right now. Trying to test run it to see if this is ready for us to offer. Pretty excited. On June 5th of 2018, we met with the building leadership team. This was a very productive day. It was a DLT day where the whole leadership team from the district was together. A lot of information came out of this day about where we want to go for 2018. We discussed progress towards level 1, HRS level 1 certification. So are we a safe and collaborative school? Do people feel that way? Do students feel that way? Do parents recognize that? Most importantly, does our staff work in a way that's collaborative? Identified celebrations and areas of needs. We developed a process for effective PLCs, and we identified our goal areas. I'm going to jump through these. I put these out there for you to peruse. The question might come up again as to how do you know if you're successful? In other words, points of measurement. So this year's school safety and security. This was highlighted in our survey last year as an area that dropped from the previous year. People are feeling less safe and secure. A lot of school shootings that got some big time news and attention. People within our building saying, how are we operating and why do we do that? We've never practiced this drill, or we never practiced this plan, or the plan on a piece of paper, I don't have it memorized. How do I know? More importantly, how do the kids know? And so what you heard Chris talk about earlier with our ICS, the whole plan here is to be able to begin to practice these things and then throw in obstacles, roadblocks, limitations that cause us to think and react. In doing that, not only do we get smarter, but our kids get smarter how to respond, and we start to discover some of the weak areas within our school that make us a safe place. I've spent some time talking with our kids about doors and door security. You can't open doors. Somebody does door knocking, you need to go through the office. And those are just little things that will help us maintain security. Start those conversations, that's a big focus area for us this year. Professional learning communities, we were looking at some improvements there. Trying to streamline what we do. The New Art and Science of Teaching is a book published by Robert Marzano. And in there they describe quality teaching or most effective teaching techniques. So we're reading that book, our professional learning communities around that book. We're evaluating teachers based on that book, and all of the discussions that we're having center on this more science teaching, so we kind of streamline it. So when they do peer observations, if I'm coming into Kim's classroom, I'm observing her based on something that we together have been studying within our ELC group about effective instruction. So people are going to be better informed as to what I'm looking for. We've had this professional dialogue about what it looks like in classrooms. So we believe this is a more effective method of ELCs. A level 2 goal, this isn't supposed to say level 2 there, but a level 2 goal for effective instruction in every classroom is we want to define an instructional model. In other words, what do we do at Pequot Lakes High School that's effective teaching? More importantly, what don't we do? You should never see this, you should see this. So that is what our focus is this year, and that's going to come through our study of this nuanced science of teaching, the discussions within our PLCs, the peer observations that we do. By the end of the year, we're going to put together that format. So if somebody comes here to work, they know these are the things you do here, this is the things you don't do here, this is what teaching looks like. We're going to engage in peer coaching, so we put that back into the goal because we're actually remodeling, reforming that model, and that's going to be based on the work that teachers have done within their PLCs. They're going to be observing each other within that PLC group. PLC is studying a topic, so to speak, like say you're studying assessment. What does quality assessment look like? How do you write assessments? How do you measure kids and their growth? They've been studying that over the course of several months, and now they're observing each other based on that work they've been doing. That's our revision of our approach. And finally, it's here, one-on-one technology integration. How are we responding to what the board has said, hey, we're going to spend this money. What does that technology give you? It could be a really expensive pencil and paper, or is it going to be something more? And so obviously something more is the goal, but what does that look like? So that's our focus with our curriculum is how do we begin to integrate this technology in our curriculum so it's a part of our daily use. Most importantly, does it personalize the education? Does it provide students with the opportunity to complete work that doesn't require them to be sitting right in front of you? I'm going to jump into some student data to throw at you. Student performance data, this is MCA, so Pequot Lakes Senior High in the area of math, 11th grade math. You take a look at years 2016, 17, and 18. These are the numbers of students who were exceeding, who were meeting proficiency, partially meeting proficiency, or did not meet proficiency. And we are very consistent with the last couple of years, you might say, as far as our number of students at 11th grade who met proficiency. Those who have exceeded, if you look at the year 2016, you'll begin to notice a trend. That was a class, year 2016, that was performed quite well. If you begin to look at averages, we're still consistent within those averages as to where our students are performing. This is a 10th grade reading. Take a look at 10th grade reading. 2016, 2017, 2018. Again, not a lot has changed. The number of kids that exceeded in 2018 grew significantly, so good for us. We're still very high in reading. This is one of our strong areas. Math is an area at 11th grade. If you take a look at the district scores, if you study Eagle View Middle School, you'll see it tailing off in math. The reading actually has been fairly consistent, so we feel like we're really doing well in our reading area. We have some growth needs and all the students feel supported in the area of math. And in science, not a lot of changes here in our trends. We're, again, fairly consistent across the board in the last 2 years as to how our students are performing at the 10th grade science test. Another measure for you to take a look at would be our ACT scores. The top one here is percent of students who met benchmark. So if you look on the far left of that chart, in the year 2015-16, there's 96 students that took it. You can go across and look at the number of percentages of students who passed each of those tests or who met all four. If you look down below, that's the average of the ACT score in each of those categories. We are down from the class of 2015-16. Like I said, they set a really high bar, but we were up from last year. Again, this is kind of cohort numbers to give you some sense of where our kids are finishing.
Are these seniors?
So this is the class of 2017-18 graduates.
Or some graduation? When do they take it?
They take it to junior. So this is like a year behind. So data would demonstrate to you that we've been fairly consistent. Math has had a slight drop off. You can look at a line graph to see the failing in math. We've been fairly consistent in both reading and science. An area of focus for this year, specifically to the high school, the North Star accountability system is new. This is what the state of Minnesota is putting out. And so they're going to take a look at a number of factors, and then they look at how the school is performing based on it. Pequot Lakes High School is doing well in many categories. 2 categories of need. The first is graduation rate. Now you've heard Chip talk about it, you've heard me talk about it. We've got excellent graduation rate. Well, the answer is that's true, but you can twist data. And the state of Minnesota is looking at data based on the number of kids that came in on a freshman group as a cohort, and how many of those kids graduated on time. It's called a 4-year graduation rate. It is really hard to manipulate that. So if a kid drops out, if a kid transfers, if a kid chooses to go homeschool, whatever that kid does, that he or she resides with us for 4 years, unless they transfer to another school and enroll. Our 4-year graduation rate is at 92%. We're above the state average at 82%. So we're at 92%. We're doing all right. I think another one that's interesting to take a look at, we have students that have IEPs that actually go to more years of school. They don't graduate on time. We keep them, they go to age 21. We have a 96% graduation rate with a 7-year program. So eligible by age 21, how many of our kids have high school diplomas? 96%. So a pretty solid number compared to the state at 87%. If you combine that, here's our 4-year graduation rate. I'll do this first, and I'll come back and talk about the second factor of that. 92% is good, not good enough. Some things that we've done to address it, or what we're looking to do to address graduation rate. We've made revisions to our credit recovery to make sure kids are getting in credit recovery earlier, so they're staying on task earlier. So that if a freshman fails a class, we try to get them back in right away so they recover, so they don't dig a hole. We identify early identification of students at risk, which is we're doing a better job of that, and with our interventionists in place in the high school, hopefully do an even better job of trying to identify which of those kids are struggling, what supports they need. Classroom level interventions is going to be a focus this year by the regular classroom teachers, supported by interventionists. Focused remediation of missed learning, which is something that happens due to attendance. We have initiated the high school grade level meetings and student assistance teams that are going to support students who are struggling, identify who the students are, why are they struggling, what are the supports we can build in regular classrooms, regular level 1 classrooms to support them. Connecting students to school in a positive way. There are students who do not have a positive connection in our building to an adult, and that is a focus of ours this year. So we're going to do some things we'll be doing here in October to identify which of those kids we feel like we have a positive connection with. Kids that don't, how do we target them to say, connect with those kids, they feel like it's a place they belong, and there's someone that cares about them. And I think the other thing is better reporting and tracking. We did find that we had some students who left our school, went to another state. We did not get information from another state about enrollment. That student was counting against us when in fact they had enrolled. We had some students who, the way they're reported looked like they dropped out, but they actually didn't drop out. They finished in another fashion, whether it be online or through the VLC, and those were not reported correctly. So that's an easy way to fix our graduation rate problem. I want to combine that with the discussion on attendance. So this is where we are going to be identified by the state as lacking. If you take our 4-year graduation rate and combine it with our attendance, we are a school at Pequot Lakes High School. We're not making the grade here according to the state. This is an issue. Pequot Lakes is not necessarily real unique in having attendance issues, but certainly I believe we're maybe above the state average as far as kids being gone. If you look at statewide, the average number of students who attend more than 90% of the time is 85%. Pequot Lakes Senior High is at 77%. Okay,
Say that again.
Yeah, so the number of students who attend school more than 90% of the time. The state is at 85%. 85% of their students attend school more than 90% of the time. We are at 77%. That's the high school. This is a 4-year training, so the years 15, 16, 17, and 18, if you calculate. Yeah, this is the last slide, and then I'll open the question. This was brought to my attention very early on last year, is that, well, wait till spring, you'll see families will take their vacations, or there's families that take a week-long vacation in the fall. And that's happening again this year. A comment was made, and I actually appreciate this insight, that in this community, we have a lot of families that are working in the resort industry, and their time for vacation can't be in the summers, and so they need to take it outside of that. I respect that. What are some things that we can do to better address attendance? We need to do a better job of tracking attendance problems of kids who are habitually absent. I would say that that's something that I took right away, that I need to do a better job of that. We need to get on it earlier, we need to address it earlier, we need to get kids on some sort of remediation plan earlier. A team approach to attendance, so we're taking a look at, we've got a couple of people who are working on this problem from different angles. So maybe it's not just a discipline problem, maybe it's actually there's social emotional needs of the student. Maybe there's something at home that's a barrier to school. This is a real story. I've had kids that have stayed home and take care of siblings because there's no daycare. That actually has happened. It's kind of hard to punish a kid because of the family situations that come up. So what can we do to do a better job of assisting in that? Again, just like graduation, earlier interventions, the earlier we know about it, the better we can target the solutions. Notifying students and parents of attendance expectations. I've communicated some of that out in my parent newsletters. Positive attendance initiatives or incentives. We are going to use some of our PBS money that Chip built up to buy rewards for students who have good attendance. I'm not asking for perfect, we're asking for really good attendance. So you can fall in that category and still miss a day or two due to a definite dental appointment or a medical need or funeral or whatever, and still be the running for some of these rewards. And then truancy tracking, when we do have kids that are truly hitting those marks. We've done truancy in the past, and now we've got some team players that are new, we can do a better job of identifying those students that need to be put the hammer down and kind of grind a little bit while coming to school. Question?
I'm just curious, do you athletics play a role in that? Are kids missing before sports get back home against them, or is that?
So I read into that definition because I figured you guys were going to ask those questions. The definition is if a staff member is being paid to supervise those students by the school district, that's considered an excused absence. So somebody who stays home because they're sick to go to the doctor, those don't count. But if I send them to a sporting event, to knowledge bowl, to an in-school suspension, those would count as excused absences and don't count against them.
So the state defines excused absence differently than the statute for truancy.
Right.
Because in this accounting.
For this accounting, correct.
Oh, nice, not bad.
Yeah, let's create multiple definitions.
Right.
And figure out which one you fall under.
Well, that's exactly what I was gonna ask, is like, how can you not, how can it count against a kid unless they go to the class?
Right, or how can it be unexcused in these numbers when you're sick? We don't want them at school supervised by our individuals if they're contagious. We want them home.
COVID delivery.
Yeah, exactly. So,
So as far as how they calculate it, they just simply said, we'll exclude those things in which the kids are supervised at school or by school personnel. If it's outside of that, it's a parent or school discretion, those will count against you.
Well, how much of those otherwise excused absences is busting our curve? It's bringing us underwater. We're at 76%. A lot of kids are going to dental, this, that, and the other. You pull all that out, we're probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I think there are real problems for sure. There are things that I think I can do a better job of saying, hey, well, that can't continue. We got to stop.
Right.
But there are a lot of legitimate things that exist in which I feel like my job as a principal is to work with parents and try to find what's agreeable or acceptable options.
And naturally, you're not going to know about the kids that don't want to. You see all the great stories of the kids who are doing well, they're involved in everything. We see those kids. we see the happiness stage want to be here.
Yeah.
You don't see the kids that don't want to come.
So my goal really isn't, I don't want to hammer parents, I don't want
Right.
to hammer kids that are, doctor appointments or any funerals.
Well, you're not going to be dragging,
circumstances.
kicking and screaming, right?
Correct.
I mean,
Family vacations in which the family says this is the only time we can go. We're
That's a
going,
big
had one right away the first week of school, we're going to our son's graduation from the Marines. I'm not going to say no to that.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I can bring it to people's attention, like, just be aware of it, if you can, schedule it outside the school day. We know that attendance in school matters to the success of kids. So how can I begin to bring people attention? I don't believe we're ever gonna get, make these great strides and jumps, but I do think we can make some small progress.
Mr. Chair. I think I've got two things on that note. I mean, I would be more concerned, I appreciate that you are concerned because I think when we measure it against the state, everybody has sick days, right? Like everybody's being measured the same, so I think as a district, we should just be aware, if everybody's kind of getting measured the same, it's like, well, wait, there's probably something going on. We kind of know, so I appreciate you bringing that up. I think probably back to the point Brandon made last year about accountability, I noticed on instructional practice and then technology, and I know I've beat this drum before, and it's probably going to be annoying, but in terms of the SAMR model, now that we have rolled out one-to-one, I would hope we become a district that at a minimum, kids don't get penalized for not printing paper. And I know it's difficult, but I did buy 2 devices here, and I think at a minimum, if we're going to roll out technology, there should be some minimum benchmarks. And I know with the SAMR model, it's a pretty wide and deep model, so I guess I would just challenge us to what is our goal, and at a minimum, are we at yes, or we at substitution? Because I think as a district, if that's going to be part of who we are, part of our instruction, I would hope that there's certain things that are no longer acceptable, like docking kids' points if they don't print the paper. So that'd be my challenge, probably throughout 7 through 12. I know you're only high school, but if we're going to buy devices, I would just strive towards that.
We use them. Is that what you're saying? We
Well,
get
not just
rid-
use them, but I mean, I think that the hard part is this, and the SAMR model is this idea that you go from substitution to augmentation. It's hard, because the hard part is it is a change in teaching, but the reality is if our kids have devices, at a minimum, there should be an expectation that they can start to use them for their workflow, even if it is a change for the teacher's workflow, right? Like, I'm not asking for the world, but at a minimum, I think there are some basic things that I hope as we think about our instructional framework and technology, which really shouldn't be any different as we move forward, those should almost kind of live within each other, that we would kind of challenge ourselves to say, if we have devices, how can we allow kids to operate a little differently than maybe they have 5 years ago? So I would just continue to feed that drum a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're speaking my language too. I appreciate that, hearing that from the board, because ultimately, if that device is in the hand, how does it transform what we do? Otherwise, like I said, it's just a really expensive pencil paper.
Right. So,
So any other questions? Yes, sir.
Aaron, going back to, you had a lot of statistics there, meets, exceeds, partially meets, and then at the other end was does not meet. And I know the percentages, as a percentage might look not a big change, but a lot of them were like 7 and they jumped up to 12%. And that's, might seem like a 5% increase, but that's actually like a 80 or 90% increase in those areas. And a lot of those people that are in that group 4 or 5 years from now will probably end up working on some college. And I really am concerned about them making sure that they're getting the interventions that we need. And I know we've made some good strides in investments in doing that, but I really want to challenge you to focus on that group, because those are a lot of those people end up here in our community, and we need them to have a solid ground to stand on when they get out of the work.
I was just saying, in response to that, I think if you were to track those individuals, you would see those students with the attendance issues and also with the graduation rate issues. So obviously, as we, with our interventions, work to address those things earlier, I shouldn't say obviously. My hope is that as we work to address those things earlier, at the 10th grade, at the 11th grade, when those assessments come in, we should see that drop in those kids that are on the far end of the
Val, just before you do, for the record, on the camera, appreciate your humility, but Lonesome Cottages are good. Nice place to work. It's a good, it's a good company.
We employ all types of people, that's just.
This is public. Val?
Okay, so, in your presentation, as we were going through the data, it jumped out to me when we were looking at math student performance data, that we have almost 50% consistently who partially meet or do not meet. That is a huge number. And when you take that number then and compare it with our attendance, they don't totally coincide. Now, maybe our does not meet coincides better with that attendance number. But I think there's more to this issue. When you look at math reading, we're at just over 20, we hang around that 25% of students who either partially meet or do not meet. And the same thing then for science, we hang around that 30, probably 35% number for science. Of partially meets and do not meet when you combine those two groups. But what really concerns me is that we're looking at 11th graders, right? Who in math, we have 45 to 50% of our students who are not meeting all of the standards. That is a huge number for a basic skill that is critical as a life skill. And I'm sorry, Brandon, but even saying a big percentage of those students graduate and work at Lonesome Cottage, you want them to know how to use a measuring stick.
You don't have to apologize, it's the exact reason I brought up the point, Valerie.
Something to that effect, that they can add and subtract and multiply and divide, and really basic skills. And I realize that that's oversimplifying what the standard is. But I think there's a bigger issue potentially there than just our attendance and those students who are not attending and who are not meeting standards because they're not sitting in the classroom because of attendance issues.
So a good idea for looking at where some of these problems do arise is if you take a look at, so I'm going to put this ACT for the one up, because if you take a look at 64, with 87 kids take a test, 64% of them met benchmarks on the ACT. So it's a really, in comparison to previous years, it kind of, that's good numbers, okay? Take out the college going students. Algebra 2 is challenging content for students.
Mhm.
No doubt about it. So that's not an excuse. That means that if we know that, what are we doing with those non-college bound students in the areas of Algebra 2 to provide them adequate support? And so that's really kind of where we're at now. We're saying, okay, how are we doing that? Instead of just saying, here's the content and you can do it, we know that they're not successful. You go back to the point about, you can see the consistent trend. We've identified that. Now what? So
How
that's
to
where,
fix it.
exactly. So that's where we're looking at with our classroom dimension is saying, okay, we got to do a better job within a classroom level instruction initially to meet those students' needs instead of saying, here's the content, we covered it, you should have known it, we're not making a dent there, so what are we going to do?
Right.
I was just gonna say, I think the other thing, and you spoke to this, that I think it's tricky as we get into, I think all parts of the district, but I appreciate that you brought it up, is sometimes a bad test score is not the cause, but it's a symptom of other things way outside of Algebra 1. And I think that is where I hope we continue to have focus, because I think for a lot of kids, just getting to school some days is a challenge. And so how do we kind of treat the whole student versus just the Algebra 1? I mean, those are the kids that I think, I was always startled in elementary school where there are families, they don't read the book. There's a lot of families out there, there's nobody reading to them, maybe nobody fixing them a meal at night. So those are the kids that how do we address that as a school district, because it's still happening in 10th grade. So I think that's the other piece that we have to kind of reflect on, is it might not just be curriculum in middle school or coming up, but how do we address that?
Just one nugget of information. Love everything we're hearing and discussing. On the math topic, one of the things that principals and superintendents have had struggle with in Minnesota in particular is where that bar is actually set. So if you look at a statewide number, 50% of the students in Minnesota are not so-called meeting the benchmark. I'd be willing to bet that half of us wouldn't meet the benchmark. Honestly, the benchmark is that high. The benchmark is ACT college ready benchmark.
That'd be an amazing thing to do that. We'll take it.
Right?
I love that though.
Right?
Me too,
Get an
so.
off election year.
We're on
Get
the
them off
passing
election
side.
year, yeah.
We're on the passing side on that.
It's just something to know as a board. When you read the data, Minnesota stands out among maybe 4 or 5 states in the nation that decided that the bar was college bound ready, which means doing well in Algebra 2. Now that's a high bar when you think about it, and particularly when 70% of the kids in the country don't go to a 4-year college. Okay, but Minnesota decided that ACT college ready was the bar, and so 50% of the kids aren't college ready. So it's just, you gotta be a little careful with the data. I've argued with MDE and other suits. Is that really the bar, and do you really have to be a master of Algebra 2 content to be a highly successful lineman, to own a business?
Kindergarten
You know?
teacher.
Right, kindergarten teacher. So there's a real tension there, and it'll never be done, but it's a point of information on your data. It's pretty high bar.
Brian, are there any other questions? More thoughts? He covers the high reliability.
So I forgot I threw this one in here. Because this is coming up in October, we're looking at a level 1 certification in October or sometime after that time. What are the things that we need to do to be ready? I would tell you if this test, if they were to come in and say, is Pequot Lakes High School a level 1, do you have a level 1 certification? The answer is no. As of today, in October 1, for sure no. What we're going to do in the meantime is we need to conduct some parent-student feedback surveys, get some input from staff, from students, parents. Is this a safe and collaborative environment? Do your kids feel safe here? Do they feel like they belong? That's something we're not going to use a lot this year. We need improved parent communication, which is something that at an individual teacher level, we communicate how concerned with parents. That's something that I know we need to do. Get a lot of feedback on that. Securing doors to entrances, I told you that's one of our focus areas. And then implementing changes or improvements to emergency procedures is also something that we are doing this year that I think will help us to feel like we're in a safer environment. That was the only thing.
Thank you, Karen, Mr. Nelson. Thank you very much for your report. No more final questions before you wrap up? Okay. Good work. Thank you. All right, moving on, we have the consent agenda number 5. Although board action is required, all items listed are considered to be routine and will be acted on by one motion. With no separate discussion. In the event a board member wishes to discuss an item, that item will be removed for separate consideration. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Do I have a second?
So Derek, as your,
Yeah, Derek and Derek and Kim, you're No, any discussion? Those in favor, yeah, there is no discussion. Those in favor?
aye.
Those opposed? Same sign. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to certify the maximum preliminary levy for 2018 payable and 2019 is calculated by the Department of Education.
Did everybody hear that motion? Okay.
Certified maximum. Okay, so the motion is by Kim.
Yeah, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Val.
Mr. Chair,
Discussion, yes.
just a point on this, and I mean, we are a board that has changed from the maximum, so I mean, I think this gives the board some time to still have some discussion. Since we're setting the levy, and obviously, is it December?
December is the plan.
December will set that. I do feel like after our last meeting, there's still more to discuss and look into, so I think it's appropriate to set the maximum list, wanted to get context around why. I made a motion.
Any other discussion?
Would you like Ms. Hagan to explain the run she gets since last Monday, or should we do that at a work session?
Get it at a work session? Yeah, I guess it's effective at a work session, obviously, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So without the board requiring that, thank you for being prepared. I think we'll move forward with our, with no more discussion, correct? I got a second. So those in favor signify by saying aye. It's not a roll call, is it? Those in favor by aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? Same sign, motion carries. B, item B, set truth and taxation public meeting. This public meeting must be held between the dates of November 25th, 2018 and December 30, 2018. The recommendation is to set the truth and taxation public meeting for 6 p.m. Monday, December 17th, 2018. The regular meeting will follow that meeting beginning at 6:30 p.m.
So moved.
So I have a
Second.
motion by Val, second by Kim. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, those in favor? Say aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Letter item C, approve the 2018-19 Alternative Career Pathways Memorandum of Understanding. Do we have a copy of that MOU, or do you want to address?
I can just quickly go 2 seconds. It's in your packets. There is a copy of the MOU. This is the third time, I believe, it's our third year, Karen? We've been doing the ACP process where teachers can earn credits that apply towards a lane change in-house in our system here. It's gotten better. We keep getting more and more applications. It's good. So this would be our third year of doing this. The union has already approved it at their fall meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I can make a motion to approve the 2018-19 Alternative Career Pathways Memorandum of Understanding as presented.
So moved. Is there a second? Derek? Second by Derek. Any further discussion?
Could I ask a question? Maybe you're not prepared for this. I apologize. Do we have a sense of how many have taken advantage of it in the 3 years?
I can easily get that for you.
Okay.
I don't have it off the top of my head.
I mean, are we talking like 10, or are we talking
No.
30, or are we talking 100?
If we eliminated the seed cohort last year, which was like 30 by itself,
Uh-huh.
I think we're in the 30-ish. Some projects are in motion.
Yeah.
I would say only 5 or 6 have actually completed earned credit. No, maybe it's more like 10 and 40. 10 have completed it and earned credit. The seed one was just a big honking group last year. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's gotten traction. Eagle View's winning. They have 3 times the number of them than the other schools. So I don't know why that is.
Well, I have a real quick question. Has there been any material change to this draft of the MOU as previous?
There is no change. It's essentially just dates.
Okay. So, any further discussion?
Thank you.
Yeah. Those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. These next two are second readings of policy 524, internet acceptable use and safety policy, and the policy 722, public data requests. These are second readings and recognized accordingly. No actions required.
Correct.
Donations. I don't have a list of donations to read. Thank you. I probably got them right. Okay, as we have in the past, these are donations to the district accounts. We will read them. The item, it's a dollar amount, the donor, and the designated use. For the first 7 or 8 are for GLAPA, so I'll just identify that. $100, Bill and Carol Campbell, GLAPA. $150, David and Marie Fisher, GLAPA. $100, Anna and Donna Olson, GLAPA. $100, Robert Upgard, GLAPA. $500, Robert Smith and Jan Marshall, GLAPA. $100, John Marchwick, GLAPA. $100, Bob and Jan Burns for GLAPA. $100, Cuyuna Regional Medical Center for youth sports. A grant in the amount of $5,000 by the Five Wings Art Council to GLAPA for a Seussical production. $468, Pequot PTA Web Leader T-shirts. $1,695, the Patriot Athletic Club for middle-level football jerseys. A trombone and a baritone saxophone by Keith A. Morehouse for the band program. Very significant total. We thank each and every donor and its intended use.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the donations as
Thank you.
presented.
Thank you. A motion and a second by somebody down there, by Kim. I'm sorry, I forgot we had to take a moment. Any further discussion? But now, yes.
I missed who made the motion.
Brandon.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Brandon,
Sorry, Brandon.
Kim. We'll get through this. Seeing no further discussion, those in favor of accepting the donations, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Do we have student activity funds? There we go. Announcement of meeting dates, number 7, but prior to meeting dates and other announcements, we have donations that are made to the student activity funds. $500 by the Hackensack Lions Club to the band program, $120 by the Whitefish Area Properties Owners Association to our track program. And once again, thank you donors and for their intended use. Meeting dates on the Monday, October 1 is 6 p.m. is a board work session, and going on to Monday, October 15th, 6 p.m. the regular board meeting. Okay. And then we have the other dates available on our website. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Kim, again. Derek gets the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.